Welcome back to another episode of Over 50 and Flourishing. Today we have a special guest who embodies the essence of resilience, creativity, and holistic well-being in midlife. Joining us is Sherry Sidoti, an award-winning author and renowned yoga teacher. Sherry is the founder of Fly Yoga, a transformative yoga teacher training program and nonprofit organization. Sherry's debut memoir, A Smoke and a Song, has generated numerous accolades, including the 2023 Gold Medal for Inspirational Memoir with the Living Now Book Awards, among many, many others. She is raw, she is real and vulnerable in her life's journey, connecting her story to all of ours. In today's episode, we dive into her life, her approach to healing through writing, and the profound impact of her work. Stay tuned for an enriching conversation with Sherry Sidoti. Hey everybody, it is summer vacation time, pool time, or beach time, and you know what that means. Finding the perfect swimsuit time. I love planning my outfits for summer vacations and parties, and swimwear can be a little persnickety when it comes to finding just the right swimsuit. That is not the case this year. Why? Because I've got my miracle suit. It is the best I have ever looked in a swimsuit, and trust me, they are transformational. Miracle Suit has the perfected shaping swimwear. It's their goal to make us not only look and feel good, but really appreciate and celebrate our bodies. We shouldn't waste any time feeling self-conscious in a bathing suit. Their proprietary Miratex fabric is kind of like a firm hug. Really, it's kind of like wearing Spanx in a swimsuit, but it feels great. I know you're going to love Miracle Suit as much as I do. There is time to still order yours for this summer, and I've got a special offer just for my listeners. Go to miraclesuit.com today and order with my exclusive code OVER50 to get 25% off. That is such a good deal. Don't wait. Save 25% off now with code OVER50 at miraclesuit.com. Let me introduce you to Hungry Root. It is the easiest way to eat healthy at home. They send you fresh, high-quality groceries, simple, delicious recipes, and essential supplements. It's basically like somebody else doing all the planning and shopping. You don't have to think about it. Just mix it all together and make. Hungry Root is great. They get to know your personal health goals, if you have any dietary restrictions, what your favorite foods are, and how much time you want to spend cooking. Then they build a personalized cart with all your grocery needs for the week, including easy 4-ingredient recipes to put those groceries to use. Yes, you heard me, 4 ingredients. That is my kind of cooking. Each order is fully customizable. You can take their suggestions or do whatever you want. Fresh produce, high-quality meat and seafood, healthy snacks, smoothies, sweets, ready-to-eat meals, kids' snacks, meals, vitamins, on and on. Hungry Root is offering Over 50 and Flourishing listeners with Dominique Sachse 40% off your first delivery and free veggies for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/over50 to get 40% off your first delivery and get your free veggies. That's hungryroot.com/over50. Don't forget to use our link so they know we sent you. Hi, Sherry. So good to see you and so good to have you on Over 50 and Flourishing. What a blessing you are for our listeners today.
Thank you so much, Dominique, for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
Oh,
Really.
thank you, Sherry. Well, thank you. You know, this is a wonderful, safe space for all things midlife. And I have really enjoyed getting to know women from all over the country who have journeyed, pivoted, changed, discovered, shared, had epiphanies. You know, it has been such a unique and amazing opportunity. That's what I see this space as, an opportunity. And I know you're like-minded in that way because you too were on a journey and you took a sabbatical and you wrote a memoir that just absolutely took off. So I want you to share your journey with this audience.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And I love this podcast and this community. It really does feel like a safe space. And it's a lot of what I kind of what I create as well on the yoga mat or what I tried to do with my memoir. So it's just, it feels like home to be here. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that's so good.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I think for me, during COVID, like the rest of the world, we were taking inventory of our life. right?
Right.
And I think particularly for our age group, it wasn't only COVID that kind of propelled that interest to start looking back at our life and going, really, what is this life that I've lived? What are these experiences that I've had? But also I turned 50 in 2020. And I think it's a time in life when we kind of just want to start to think about what it is that we're going to pass on, not only to our children and future grandchildren, but really like, what is our place in the world? And what have we been covering or hiding or keeping to ourselves that wants to be shared? And so for me, that was an organic thing that was happening inside me. And then COVID came. And I had been teaching yoga for over 20 years, training yoga teachers and leading retreats and women's groups and, lots of different offerings in the healing arts. And I found myself at a time in life where I was just really exhausted, right? Like the rest of the world, we had to pivot online. Right. And by September of 2020, I just really felt tapped out, like that I was not doing any good on the planet, being as tired as I was and still trying to offer and support and midwife other people on their healing journeys. And I thought, perhaps it's time for me to turn back inward and do some of that for myself again. We do it multiple times in life, depending on what experiences kind of thrust that forward. But, and right around the same time, my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I know we have the mother thing. Yeah, we're sharing that.
I'm so sorry.
We're both in that experience right now. And so that really thrust me inward to say, this is a time in my life where I have to give back to myself a little bit. Something I had never really thought about doing was creating art and just giving myself time to consider myself an artist. I always thought of myself more as someone of service. And so I decided to take a sabbatical from teaching yoga.
Right.
And I just put the pen to the paper and started to write. And at first, the experience was much more cathartic. It was more personal and internal. I had no intention of writing a book. I was waking up at 3 a.m. because menopause. And, right.
And hello. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Get mad or actually be creative and do something?
Well, exactly. Someone said to me years ago, a friend of mine who was my elder said to me years ago, never resist. If you wake up at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, that's the creative hour. That's when, that's when life force is moving through you. So I heeded, to that advice. And I started to get up, and because everyone at home was still sleeping, I had to do something that was quiet, that didn't require a lot of lights. So I would take my little iPad and go out on my deck, and I just started to write. And I used a lot of the yoga and meditation that I had to kind of get in the place to remember certain experiences and just to kind of call them forward. And I didn't know what stories I was going to write, but the stories that wanted to be written started to pour out of me.
Yes.
Right.
And what were those? What came out of you?
I think at first, the stories that wanted to be revealed were all the things that I had shoved down, things that I had processed to a certain extent, but maybe not fully. Some of our difficult challenges, the traumas, a lot of stories that were coming forward had to do with transgenerational inheritance, grandmother stories, mother stories, generations of women in my family. And they were stories that stories that wanted to come out because I think that they no longer wanted to live and reside in my body alone, right? We carry so many stories.
Yeah.
And so for the first bunch of months, it was more of those that kind of cathartic experience of just getting out what I had shoved down. So a lot of the more personal, challenging, vulnerable moments of my life, right?
Any details that you want to share about all that? I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
sure.
people can get it in your book called A Smoke and Song, which just took off last year,
Thank you.
and I'm excited to dive deeper into it. But what was starting to come out of you, and did you even realize you were on the cusp of what you were writing?
No, I didn't realize it. What was coming out were a lot of the stories that I think have to do with living in a woman's body, and a woman of a certain age and having had a number of years of experience. So heartbreak, loss, traumas, contending with the relationship that we have to our body, maternal bonds, divorce, child rearing, empty nesting, you know, all the big
Yes.
themes were coming
All the
forward.
things.
Yeah. And then also just this, because I was personally going through almost like a pre-grieving period, because I knew that my mom was at the end of her life or near to the end of her life. There was loss looming in the moment as well. And I think that when we grieve, or even when we pre-grieve, everything we've ever had to grieve for comes up at once. It's almost like we don't have another choice. We can't select our grief.
Right.
Like today I'm just going to grieve about this. And then life is like, no, all the grief, all the heartbreak and loss, and those big themes of life that are difficult experiences to fully digest at the time that we're having them.
It's a flood.
It's a flood. It started to just pour out of me. And so I think that's what showed up first. And then I realized, you know, there's a lot of joy, gratitude, so many incredible blessings that I've had in my life. And those then followed, started to write those. And still, even months into it, I didn't think of it as I'm writing a book. But it wasn't until, 6 to 8 months after I started writing, I started to reread what I was writing. And I was like, wow, there are some themes coming through that if I find the correct way to connect these stories, I might have a book. Yeah.
It's interesting. You know, people oftentimes think, oh, well, maybe there's a book in me. I don't know. I feel like I've got a lot to write. But nobody ever, I won't say nobody, but rarely do people sit down and actually start writing. And what an epiphany for you to have done something that initially sounded very cathartic, helpful, healing, journaling, that suddenly pivoted and was becoming so much more. And that's the beauty about bold risk taking in this life, and especially in this stage in life. We don't necessarily know those seeds that are planted in us until we actually start to nourish them.
I agree. I feel like the risk taking, or even if you want to call it the pause taking, is of such value for us to allow whatever it is that wants to be born through us to start to move through. Had I not taken the sabbatical from teaching, I just don't, for several reasons, I don't think I would have ended up writing a book. Time and, all those constraints. But also more than that is that the writing was very raw and vulnerable. And it was more my journey and my own spiritual evolution as a student and my own uncovering. And after 20 something years of stewarding other people and teaching, had I been teaching at the time, I think I would have continued the teacher's voice in my writing. And when I started to write, I really didn't want to do that. I didn't want to write a prescriptive book yet. I probably will at some point, but for this experience, I really wanted to just gift myself the experience of laying it all out there and then editing later somewhat, right? And I do think that it required some quiet, and it required a pause from the role that I had seen myself. I don't think anyone else would have minded, but it was more me with me, who I was putting myself on the planet to be, and the roles and responsibilities I was owning. Maybe nobody was giving it to me, but I was owning myself. It wasn't until I put those on pause that I felt kind of the confidence to just really try on another identity in some ways.
That is so interesting, Sherry, that the word you use is part of the word to define our stage in life, menopause. And it's fascinating because you're so right. We have to pause in what it is that we're doing in order to understand and recognize who we are, but also maybe just to realize what we are isn't serving us anymore. And I think that's the scariest thing for women to do in midlife is just hit the pause button, because you know what? I think we all feel like the world's going to fall apart if we stop doing what it is that we're doing, that we balance and we handle and we manage so much that if we pause, it's all going to crash.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
It didn't, and it doesn't. I don't think it would for others as well. I think that we do have that idea that, we need to keep going and keep the engines running. And we've also now just raised children. We've done so many different things. We've built a career. So the thought of having to pivot or change or pause or stop can be very frightening.
Yeah, very much so indeed. Boy, what a lovely, lovely conversation. We're going to talk with Sherry a little bit more because I want to dive deeper into your book, getting into some specific chapters, because there's so much that you learn, but also is so helpful for the reader that she can glean as well and have those maybe epiphanies and ahas, or I feel that way too. There's so much comfort in just knowing that you share an experience with somebody. So I'm grateful you took the pause. We're going to rejoin you right on the backside of this commercial break. Hey, everybody, it is summer vacation time, pool time, or beach time, and you know what that means. Finding the perfect swimsuit time. I love planning my outfits for summer vacations and parties, and swimwear can be a little persnickety when it comes to finding just the right swimsuit. That is not the case this year. Why? Because I've got my miracle suit. It is the best I have ever looked in a swimsuit, and trust me, they are transformational. Miracle Suit has the perfected shaping swimwear. It's their goal to make us not only look and feel good, but really appreciate and celebrate our bodies, especially in life's precious moments with beach days with family, vacations by the pool. We shouldn't waste any time feeling self-conscious in a bathing suit. Their proprietary Miratex fabric is kind of like a firm hug. Really, it's kind of like wearing Spanx in a swimsuit, but it feels great. I love the styles and patterns, the quality, amazing. These suits are going to last forever. My personal favorite is the over-the-shoulder, kind of the asymmetrical look, one piece. Just beautiful. You can't go wrong. I know you're going to love Miracle Suit as much as I do. There is time to still order yours for this summer, and I've got a special offer just for my listeners. Go to miraclesuit.com today and order with my exclusive code over50 to get 25% off. That is such a good deal. Don't wait. Save 25% off now with code over50 at miraclesuit.com. Hey, are you one of those who enjoys eating a meal at home? You like to meal prep, but you don't want to deal with the grocery store, the lines, and the time that it takes? Let me introduce you to Hungry Root. It is the easiest way to eat healthy at home. They send you fresh, high-quality groceries, simple, delicious recipes, and essential supplements. It's basically like somebody else doing all the planning and shopping. You don't have to think about it. Just mix it all together and make. Hungry Root is great. They get to know your personal health goals, if you have any dietary restrictions, what your favorite foods are, and how much time you want to spend cooking. Then they build a personalized cart with all your grocery needs for the week, including easy 4-ingredient recipes to put those groceries to use. Yes, you heard me, 4 ingredients. That is my kind of cooking. Each order is fully customizable. You can take their suggestions or do whatever you want. Fresh produce, high-quality meat and seafood, healthy snacks, smoothies, sweets, ready-to-eat meals, kids' snacks, meals, vitamins, on and on. Let me tell you, I'm a protein and veggies kind of girl, but I like my healthy food to taste great. They know how to do it right. Hungry Root is offering over 50 and Flourishing listeners with Dominique Sachse 40% off your first delivery and free veggies for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/over50 to get 40% off your first delivery and get your free veggies. That's hungryroot.com/over50. Don't forget to use our link so they know we sent you. Welcome back. My guest today is Sherry Sidoti. She is a pivoted yoga instructor, now author, award-winning author. Her memoir, A Smoke and a Song. Sherry, I'm going to brag on you. 2023 gold medal for inspirational memoir. That's a big deal. We were just talking about, oh yeah, yeah, you're like, I'm going to take a sabbatical. I'm going to sit back, relax, enjoy the show, start jotting down thoughts. I mean, did you ever think that this memoir would reach that level and you would reach so many people?
No. I really had no idea what I was doing while I was writing it. Even once I decided to, give it a try and write a full book and try to publish it and all of that, I really didn't have any idea. But I do think that it's timely topics. I think those of us who grew up in the 70s and the 80s were at a time in our life where we want to make meaning of the memories that we've had. And we also realize that what we thought have been our own individual experiences that feel so personal and so intimate are really universal experiences. And when I think at a certain age, we realize that. And then we're like, oh, well, what am I hiding from? Why am I keeping this to myself? Maybe by sharing my story, other people will make meaning of their own experiences relative to their own life, but they are opened up to it through my experiences or my sharing of my story. Yeah.
Completely. And I think that there's a hunger for that right now.
Yes.
More than any other time, because I think we're in a unique situation, Sherry. I mean, you and I have talked about it. Divorce, not everybody, but many, raising children, caring for aging parents,
Yes.
in this interesting sort of weird spin cycle of the dryer that nobody told us we would be going through. So it's sort of hit us by surprise. And then talking about the physical changes that we're going through. I mean, it's a lot. It is a lot to process. And I feel like everybody has been shouldering this burden by themselves. And then suddenly it's like somebody took that can opener, opened it up, and then we all went, bah, me too, me too. And finally there's this release and this outlet. And I'm so grateful that there are all these different platforms, women like you writing about it, talking about it. So to continue that, I would love for you to read kind of your opening statement of your book.
Ooh.
A Smoke and a Song.
Well, here's the book.
Get us into it. There it
so
is.
Can I just lead in a little bit to this passage that I'm going to
Yes.
write?
Please do.
That I'm going to read. So
Well, you did write it.
I did write it, and now I'm going to read it. Yeah,
exactly.
So the story begins where I'm in New York City. I don't live there, but I'm there to help my mother, who's just had a medical procedure, and we don't know the results of it yet. But I pick her up from the hospital and I bring her into bed, and she's just so small and frail. And I'm in a little bit of a spin cycle. I'm in my childhood apartment where I grew up, and the memories keep flooding. And in this one little passage that I'll read, I had just taken her a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and put it by her bed. And I've informed all the family members about what's going on. And I'm standing at our kitchen window where I grew up, and there's a new high-rise being built in front of the building, in front of our window, blocking our beautiful view of the Jefferson Market Library and where the Twin Towers used to be. And it's during COVID. It's early stages of COVID. So I'm just standing at the window. So I'll just read a short passage.
Sure.
At the window, I see my reflection staring back at me. I look old, like my mother looked when I was a kid, only fuller. My once toned body has recently become someone else's, so I feel. No matter how hard I exercise these days, my body keeps getting bigger. My jawline has been hijacked. It's triple chin city over here. My bras no longer fit. My breasts are so engorged you can see them from behind. Even my old period jeans are too tight on me now. I think maybe we gain weight in menopause because we need a bigger suitcase to carry all the lives we have lived. How else could we carry the stories? Careers, homes, lovers, losses, friends, secrets, children, empty nesting, success, failures, forgetting, remembering again. And the cellular imprints, codes gestated from eggs and planted by sperm that lived in my mother and father, and their parents before them, and the great-grand ones too. A carry-on just wouldn't suffice. All this living in the folds of my skin. Why, despite all the years of letting go, does my body hold on? I shrug it off. I should make peace with my 50-year-old body. It's a small price to pay for the wisdom that comes along with cronehood. So what if the crows have nested by my eyes? These eyes are privileged to see into the souls of so many beautiful humans. I see how they look back at me with hope, approval, and affection. So what if my lips crinkle when I speak? These lips have shared words of advice and comfort and inspiration. They have kissed the back of many necks. So what if my hands look like a 3D map of veins? These hands have held babies, tended plants, and hugged hard.
Wow, Sherry. That's really powerful.
Thank you.
You know, it's so powerful. It's so real. It's so not flowered. It is what a woman thinks as she sees. And, you know, it's so interesting to me that we experience a grief that is the loss of ourselves or the self that we have come to know and identify with. And we see her leaving little by little. We see her leaving and we have to let go because we'll never be her again. And so it is a grieving while and it's interesting because I hear you looking for those affirmations of, well, okay, I'm losing this, but I've gained this. And I'm losing this, but I have this. And it seems like those buts, while they are amazing, we struggle still with what it is that we're losing. And it's fascinating to me that we as women really, really have a hard time with the physical, don't we?
Yeah, it's really, and for me, especially as a yoga instructor for so many years, my body was my vehicle completely as an identity. I used it for work and for play and everything in between. And it, like you said, it is an identity that we're grieving as we're losing it or as we're changing and shifting. But nobody teaches us, or now we're starting to, right? But it's not intrinsic in our society to celebrate this time, to celebrate the leaving of something, to enter something that's just so much more powerful and so much more beautiful. Our intuition, our knowing, our wisdom, our ability to take what felt like a wound at one point in our life and, transmute it and make it wisdom. It's like, going from the raw clump of coal to the diamond, and it's not celebrated enough. So to balance out the loss or what we're leaving behind, we have to kind of find it from the inside or seek a community like this and others where we feel supported and empowered to be in this next phase of life. Because it's very challenging. We're letting go of kids. We're caretaking our parents and then letting them go, which is really challenging.
Yes.
And a central question that I asked throughout my life, and thus it made it through my memoir, is, because I've been on a spiritual path for so many years as well. And all the spiritual teachers, all of my, my mother and my grandmother, other people have consistently been like, you have to learn to let go. Letting go is the answer. Freedom comes from letting go. And it was something that I questioned for years and still question, like, is it really found from letting go? Or is it found from kind of digging our heels deeper into this earth and being more human, holding on to our humanity and our humanness and making deep connection, exploring our reason for being here, which in my opinion is for relationships.
Yes. Right? That's an interesting dance that you talk about, because in my journey and what I have come to find out in my 57 years is that it's a a dance of both. It's a tango where sometimes it's digging in the heels and sometimes it's letting go. And I'm sure you have found that to be true in your life as well, right? Because to pivot like you did and let go of something and move into something else is a letting go, but at the same time, to pursue it with passion, productivity, purpose is a digging in.
Exactly.
So it's,
Yeah,
it's so, I think we're meant to do both.
I
I think
agree.
I do. I really think we're meant to do both because I think in the way I see it, God gave us purpose.
Mhm.
He planted seeds in us to fulfill that only we can. And so it's on us to do with those as we will. But at the same time, it's also on us to let go of things that we cannot control,
Right.
to let go of people, to let go of situations. So it's a myriad, which is why it's so complex and complicated.
Yes, I agree. And that surrendering, I think the way I've been
Yeah.
trying to digest it for myself, because it's this wild dance between the two, is
Yes.
that, the things that I want to quote unquote let go of are usually the things that are challenging me or bothering me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm focused on letting them go, I'm actually giving them more energy to stay around. So
Interesting.
I'm building a lot of my own energy around the letting go of the thing. Let's say it's an experience or,
Mm-hmm.
an issue that I had with somebody. And
Yeah.
so when I overemphasize the letting go, I'm actually grasping to it
Yeah. You're giving
instead.
life
Yeah,
to
I'm
it.
giving a lot of life to it. So the way that I've been looking at it and the way it came through in my writing and even comes through in my yoga practice is that if I let
Mm-hmm. To be.
if I just let it,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the thing is, for long enough, whatever I wanted to push away or wanted to let go of eventually does go. But
Mm-hmm.
it takes its own journey there. I can't push it out or force it out of my beingness. I have to let it live with me, maybe get
Mm-hmm.
curious about it, explore
Yes.
it a little bit more. What does it mean to me? Why is this such a hook? How can I breathe into it, surrender,
Mm-hmm.
let the greater entities and spirit kind of guide the decision making or the process. And eventually the thing that was hooking me starts to loosen and allow
Mm-hmm.
for more space. And in that space, then I can be free from it. So freedom comes
Yes.
from like the allowing or the letting. The go happens when we allow it, when we let
Yes.
it.
That's
Yeah.
exactly. But to your point, you're so right. We have to live with things
Hmm.
as painful or as uncomfortable, unpleasant, uncalled for. Sometimes we just have to live. And it's when we can live in the presence of those things. And that's been my journey too. You and
Hmm.
I have had very similar paths. And, it wasn't until I could sit with it, live with it, process it, not try to hide from it, not bury it, not run away from it, that it started to leave me. And
Hmm.
it was this natural letting go. And it is kind of fascinating. When you reflect on it, hindsight, they always say is 2020. You don't see it or feel it in the moment, but it does happen. I just absolutely love that passage in your book. I think that's beautiful. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
beg and plead if you would be so kind, maybe read something else to us as well. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with Sherry Sidoti, who has written just the most beautiful memoir about how we really think and feel in midlife. And she's raw and real and took pen to paper. And that memoir just became an outright success. So it's called A Smoke and a Song. And we'll hear more from her in just a moment.
Thank you.
I love summer fashion, and one of the things I love is classic, effortless style. And if you want that sort of quality, no-brainer, I don't have to think about it, but I'm always going to look good type of a look, Look no further than Jenny Kane. You've heard me talk about them all throughout the winter. Their sweaters are essentially quintessential favorites, but in the summertime, classic dresses like the Cove dress. I love its lightweight, flowy fabric. I am equally obsessed with the Riviera slip dress. So easy to put on. It's cool, it's breezy, it's effortless. It's just the perfect choice for summer gatherings. And their shoes too. They've got the beautiful Eve sandal. It's everything you could want in a classic spring shoe. Seriously, pairs well with any seasonal outfit. Jenny Kane believes in the art of simplicity. They focus on comfort, quality, and timeless design. That way you get to curate a wardrobe that never goes out of style. Doesn't that sound great? You can find your new uniform at jennykane.com. Our listeners get 15% off your first order when you use code Dominique15 at checkout. That's 15% off your first order, JENNIKAYNE.com, promo code Dominique15. Let getting dressed be one less thing to worry about. Embrace your summer aesthetic with Jenny Kane. Welcome back. My guest today is Sherry Sidoti. She is a beautiful, amazing woman in midlife who transitioned from yoga instructor and her practice. And I'm sure you're still practicing to this day. Once you do yoga, you never stop doing yoga. It just becomes a part of you. But you were a teacher and trainer, and you pivoted, Sherry, and you wrote the most exquisite memoir called A Smoke and a Song. And it won a gold medal in 2023 for being inspirational. After the passage that you read my audience, the last segment, it is so clear as to why. During the commercial break, you had talked about your mom to me, and you had mentioned that she was diagnosed with cancer in 2020, and you shared with me that you lost your beautiful mom in March of this year. So I just want to offer my sincerest condolences. I absolutely understand and know where you are. I'm sorry. It's such a tough journey when you're close to your mother like that. It's so difficult. So
yes,
I just want to extend my heartfelt sympathies to you. And I know, members of this community are doing the same. Those who are in a similar situation near or have kind of crossed over to that other side. And that just pulls on such a tender heartstring.
Yeah, it's a really intense experience. I mean, we were talking about, my father passed when I was 20, and my mom just left in March. And one of the, aside from just the deep grief and sadness and the loss of just not even being able to pick up the phone and, call her every morning, is just this other huge identity shift, which is like, I'm no longer a daughter. I'm no longer a daughter. And, what that does to the psyche and to our sense of self, it's just really bizarre. There's almost like this ever present, no matter how old we got, there was this ever present feeling that, like, if there was something happening, I wanted to share that with my mother, not only because I loved her, but because she's my mother. Right? It's almost like it's not really approval, but it's just some form of, like, it's a checklist. Like, it's not really
it's automatic.
Yeah. Like, it's not really happening unless mom knows about it. Yeah. And so just where to put that energy is challenging. And then, there's so much sadness. And then there's just all the life stuff that you have to deal with when someone passes away that is such a mean distraction, right? It's such an unfriendly distraction to have to deal with that. Cause I would love to just look at photos and write more and listen to songs and just honor her in the best way that I can.
Yeah, we're never really instructed about that business side of end of life.
Yeah.
That's another journey that I think a lot of us are sadly having to discover out of necessity and not out of preparation, but almost this sort of, oh my gosh, I need to catch up. I'm not prepared. We don't have this. We don't have that.
Yeah.
And there really is such a nasty kind of paperwork side to losing a loved one. And you're right. It detracts from the listening to, Sinatra or Charles Aznavour, or whatever mom's favorite artist was, and flipping through the albums when you're having to go through all of those checklists. And it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm really lucky because I got almost an extra 3 years to be with her. And I, we got very close while I was writing the book. I read her lots of passages during the process, and she was dabbling with writing as well at the time. So she would read me her short stories, and we would do that, in the
I
evenings.
love
And
that.
it was a really lovely exchange. And while I was writing it, I really thought that she would be gone before the book was published. And I think that allowed me in some ways to be just open and free about writing about our relationship, because there's a lot of the daughter-mother bond, and the complexity of it that comes through in the memoir. And not something that can be avoided, I guess, if you're writing your memoir, right? And to the mother.
Was she surprised by anything, or
She
blown away,
was.
or why didn't you tell me
She
this?
was. By the time the book came out last summer, she really wasn't reading much anymore. Her health was, she was still very present and vibrant and alive, but she was in pain. She was
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And so I spent a week. We have a family home in Provincetown, and we spent a week there together. And I read her the book, and I was terrified because I didn't want to hurt her feelings.
Yeah.
I didn't want to upset her or make her any more uncomfortable. And there's definitely some things in the book that I knew could hurt her feelings. And I didn't write it with any malintent. It was more because that was part of our journey. And so, you do eventually come to the other side of it. But I was processing. When you're writing about people in your life, this is what's different maybe about memoir than writing fiction, is you're choosing to spend an enormous amount of time with these people that you write about. And whether they're aware of it or not, you're doing monumental processing of the relationship and healing. I mean, it could also be harming, I guess, if you stir stuff up and then you don't do anything with it.
Sure.
But if you're willing to kind of explore the relationships deeply, it's a huge act of love and devotion to write about people in your life, even if they don't love what you've written.
Exactly.
But
you know what it is? I mean, to me, it's an honest exchange of what is, meaning how you see, feel, and interpret something about what was, about a shared experience from the past. And your mother's or your siblings' idea or interpretation of that could be very, very different from yours.
Absolutely.
And it provides such an amazing sense of clarity for others in your life to better understand you and maybe how you saw something, how you processed it. And that sharing, although it may sting and probably feel, just so awkward and uncomfortable in the moment, really allows for this opportunity of closeness and compassion.
Yes.
If it's approached that way.
Yes, I very much found that. And some of it came from the discomfort of some of my family members reading what was in there and not loving it entirely, which at the beginning was a very uncomfortable feeling to have. It was very scary. I thought, oh no, I might have ruined these relationships. I didn't mean it in this way, or whatever it might have been, because everybody has had their own version of an experience. Even if everyone remembers being in the same place at the same time, we all walk away with our own interpretation, because it's based on a million different factors and what we remember, how we felt, how we interpreted that experience.
Yes.
And, but what it did do, not only with others in the book, but particularly with my mother, is it allowed us to have conversations that we would have never, ever had had I not written this and they had not read it. And so that was one of the, I feel like my mom held on for the book to come out, almost for that part of our journey on a soul level, our journey together, that she would be able to learn parts of my perspective on my experience as her daughter. And although it might sting, as you said, parts of it might sting, ultimately it brought us into having conversations we would have never had, having openings that we wouldn't have had in our relationship, as well as, she just was very graceful. She gave me a lot of space, and all she said at the end is, I might remember that differently, or I might have had a different experience, but I'm so glad that I can leave. It's going to make me cry. I'm so glad that I can leave knowing more about how you felt inside.
Yeah.
Because and I can relate to that as a mother, right? I'm a
Right.
mother and I have
Yep.
lots of conversations with my son all the time. We're very, very close, but I
Mhm.
still don't really know how he feels deep down inside about certain things.
Yeah.
And so my mom said that she was just grateful that she got to see parts of my insides that she probably
Mm.
wouldn't have learned about had I not written it in the book.
You know, you are really speaking to the power of the written word, and I have always found it to be an incredible door opener
Yes.
for the soul, for not only connection to yourself, but to others in this world, and even better, those in your life. For that reason,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to get closer, to have a better understanding, to have validation. You know, we all want to be our feelings to be
Yeah.
validated by those that we love. And it's a great opportunity. And even if you aren't given that gift of validation, there's something really important about letting it out, that cathartic experience of just saying, this was my perception, experience, feelings, and I'm going to put it down. And who knows where it may lead? Who knows the kind of healing that can take place just from that alone?
Exactly. I mean, we really are literally giving ourselves an opportunity to rewrite our story, to
Yes.
reparent the parts of ourselves that felt lonely or unparented, or to, reimagine our relationship to the
Mm,
experiences that we've had, because you're writing and then you're rewriting and editing and all the stages. Each stage of that I found to be another layer of healing. I really
mhm.
find writing as a practice to be very healing. It's a spiritual
Yeah,
practice. It really
it
is.
is. I agree with you.
We tap into something beyond just the mind and the chatter and the
Mm,
everyday stuff. We go into a place where something in us opens that we can tap into that we may not be able to in regular everyday stuff.
mhm,
And that connects us. It connects us to one another. It also connects us to something greater, God, spirit, love, all of
mhm.
the above. And something more powerful starts to move through us, whether it's coming from down and up, whether it's coming from inside the body that wants to come out because it doesn't want to be in the dark anymore,
Right.
or whether it's a conduit that's coming from something higher that's moving through us and taking the pen or the keyboard and putting it on paper so that
Mhm.
have it can have a life outside of us.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the perfect word to use, is for it to have a life. And it's so interesting too, and you've probably found this as you revisit older things that you've written. You know, I like you, I journal. I've written a book, but it's was more
Mm-hmm.
prescriptive. But for me personally, I like to journal. And I went through some dark years for the past, I'm out now, but 3 years were pretty difficult. And I came across some of that writing, and it was interesting. It's like a hook back into your past.
Yeah.
And it's really sort of wild to see. You forget. It's almost like childbirth.
Yeah.
That's why we're able
Yeah.
to have more than one children. You
Yeah.
forget the pain, so that you can continue on. But it was fascinating. It was as if I went back to childbirth, and I was like, wow, that was a lot. That was
Mm-hmm.
a lot, a heavy burden. And I was so, and it's weird. I was so grateful that I had written what I had, because it made me so appreciative of where I am now. And the perspective was so great. And there were even in the pain and the process, there were still these wonderful little nuggets of gratitude, and to what you were talking about in your memoir, the loss of this, the loss of that, the crows that showed up on my eyes, but I'm smiling and I'm imparting wisdom and I'm doing that. And so those are beautiful moments to be able to find within yourself, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And imagine this, because we go through these challenging times, and how beautiful that you journaled and have some of these reflections to look back on. But usually when we're out of those dark phases, we're out.
Right,
And,
exactly.
we can talk about having been through them, but we talk about it with the wisdom that we've gained or the experience that we've
Mhm.
gained since, also equally what we've forgotten or chosen to forget. And
Sure.
so, we're on our journey, and now we've had those experiences. They're behind us, thankfully, and we're, puttering along. We'll have new ones that probably even more challenging that will come ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine that if that journal entry, however scary and vulnerable it feels,
Mm-hmm.
met somebody who is having that similar experience right now.
Correct.
How useful and healing and supportive
Mm-hmm.
your experience,
And not alone.
your experience could help someone else feel less alone, inspired, empowered, all of the above. And that was something that I chose while I was writing. And then at a certain point, when I had what felt like a book, I realized that I wanted to, instead of being me now, looking back at the experiences I've had and writing them in past tense,
Mm-hmm.
as a 50-something-year-old woman now with the experience that I do, I decided that I wanted to bring the reader along on the experience as I had them. So I turned the whole book into present tense.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that at each stage of my life that I was having the experience, I was writing from the perspective I had then. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
that would be kind of one way to, like, in the same way that I might do that with a yoga practice, like just get people breathing and moving and feeling their own self, and the rest will work itself out.
Correct.
I think I imparted a similar, heart space around the book. Like, if I could put it into present tense, then if somebody's reading it, they're right there with me. And if they're
Yes.
having a similar experience or their own version of something that's challenging, and they're there with me while I'm having my challenging experience, well, we're no longer alone. And as you said, we're all just looking for validation, love, to be seen, to be held, to be
Mm-hmm.
supported, to not feel alone.
Right.
And so I
And
thought,
as you and I mentioned earlier too, we are far more alike than we are different.
yeah, yes, absolutely. And it's really, I think it's very healing
Yeah,
to share in those experiences, right?
I do too. And not only for you, but your healing reach to those who pick up your book and read it and connect with it. And
Yeah.
so will you grace us again with another passage from your book as we close it out
Sure.
today?
Yes, I sure will.
Great. Mm.
This is toward the end of the book, and I'll just read. I won't really give any background, but I teach my students that the way we leave a yoga posture is more important than the posture itself. The longer the hold, the more breaths we take in it, the more necessary it is to transition out of the pose slowly. Not unlike life, I say. The more years in a career, a house, a relationship, the more care it deserves upon exit. So that we don't hurt ourselves on the way out. So that we move into the next pose with full presence, clarity, and a clean slate. So as not to drag where we were into where we will be. Pay attention and give your full devotion to leaving, I say, before it becomes a memory. But when looking back, as I often do these days, it is easier to access the heroine who came to the other side from my experiences and flourished, but not as easy to recall my slow crossing of the bridge. It is easier to access the life lessons gained, but not the messy, slobbering, snot-filled tears while learning them. I'm able to picture the flashes and clips and blips, but I can barely recall the whole reel. The smell of my grandma's wet paint, my son's newborn breath on my chest, rainwater seeping into my feet through the holes in my shoes, a smoke and a song. Memory is not a timeline of events. Memory lives in layers of gooey marrow, porous bone, slippery synovial fluid. It hides in soft connective tissues and bunion feet, inside the creases of our knees and hair follicles. The mind often forgets, but the body remembers. Is freedom from suffering found in letting go, as the ancients and my mother insist? Or is it found by digging our heels deeper into the earth and remembering our humanness? To remember to remember, to reunite the members, to collect all the bits and pieces of our brokenness into one whole again.
Wow. Bravo.
Thank you.
Bravo. Sherry. Oh my gosh. What a beautiful work of art you created.
Thank you.
What a beautiful voice you have. Truly beautiful. I am so grateful to know you and to have heard your story and have you share with this audience your words of wisdom and your journey. And I know that you have connected with so many women and they with you today. And that in and of itself is such a blessing.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor and a joy and a pleasure to know you and to be here with you today. I really appreciate the invite.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Loved our conversation today. Boy, when we finished, we said we could spend hours together talking, and it's true. It's true. I hope that you enjoy her book, A Smoke and a Song. What a beautiful piece of work that can be found anywhere where you purchase books, whether it's Amazon, any online bookstore, your local bookstore. I really encourage you to read it because you may find your journey through hers. Remember, if you are enjoying this content and let's say you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And of course, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about today's episode, or if there's anything else that you would love to hear from me on the podcast, Over 50 and Flourishing. And if you're listening wherever you listen to podcasts, and that can be Apple, Spotify, you name it, I always encourage you to rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast with women in your life, friends, mothers, daughters, sisters, anybody who you feel can benefit from this content. So good to have you with me, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. You know, I love summer fashion, and one of the things I love is classic, effortless style. And if you want that sort of quality, no-brainer, I don't have to think about it, but I'm always going to look good type of a look, look no further than Jenni Kayne. You've heard me talk about them all throughout the winter. Their sweaters are essentially quintessential favorites, but in the summertime, classic dresses like the Cove dress. I love its lightweight, flowy fabric. I am equally obsessed with the Riviera slip dress. So easy to put on. It's cool, it's breezy, it's effortless. It's just the perfect choice for summer gatherings. And their shoes too. They've got the beautiful Eve sandal. It's everything you could want in a classic spring shoe. Seriously, pairs well with any seasonal outfit. Jenni Kayne believes in the art of simplicity. They focus on comfort, quality, and timeless design. That way you get to curate a wardrobe that never goes out of style. Doesn't that sound great? You can find your new uniform at jennikayne.com. Our listeners get 15% off your first order when you use code Dominique15 at checkout. That's 15% off your first order, JENNIKAYNE.com, promo code Dominique15. Let getting dressed be one less thing to worry about. Embrace your summer aesthetic with Jenni Kayne.